Welcome! This is a video about the circle of fifths, and you might notice quite soon that it's gonna be different. First, I must confess. A bit over a month before I started recording, in the beginning of December 2019, I knew nearly nothing about music. Okay, to be fair, I knew the names of the notes, forward and backward. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, si, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Yeah, in French. I knew there were sharps and flats and naturals, dièse, bémol, and bécard. And although I knew that if you found some of these before the first bar of a staff, they applied for the duration of the piece, I had no idea that they were in fact key signatures. Then, suddenly, I discovered the wonderful world of music theory. I then gobbled up numerous videos on YouTube, among which those many that introduced me to the magical tool the circle of fifths is. I saw the circle of fifths explained and described in many ways. On a half side on the right for sharps, and then on a half side on the left for flats. Or all the way around clockwise, with a total sharp-flat exchange halfway around. I even saw a sensible suggestion of a triangle of fifths. As I learned what major and minor and key signatures were, I was presented with some of the many ways the circle of fifths can help. Among others, giving the names and locations of the various chords, major, minor, or otherwise handicapped. Then I started having questions none of the videos I saw did answer. For instance, one video presented it as self-evident that the newest sharp comes on the 7th note for a given scale. My scientific mind wanted clear and definite explanations. I went around for a couple of weeks asking whomever I could find, and nobody knew the answer. And then I had an epiphany, which led me to making this video. The cardinal characteristic, the definite delight, the exquisite effectiveness, the finest feature, the greatest genius, the amazing ability, the bewildering beauty of the circle of fifths is that it provides a structured overview of the 12 major scales and the 12 minor scales. We just went through 7 of each of those, and you probably don't remember which they were. The circle of fifths will help you remember, even mesmerizingly memorize, how many incidentals, sharps or flats a scale has and on which notes these fall, the scale's key signature. Now, let's go on to the interesting part of this video, which is we have to unwind the circle of fifth onto the lines of fifth. What does that mean? How do you put it to use? Well, it's very easy. You take a 5-string guitar And then you sprinkle white powder
No,
on
no, not those lines of fifths.
no, that's another video.
All right, let's get serious now. Yes, as you can see, we are literally going to unwind a circle of fifths onto the lines of fifths. Let's start with the baseline of fifths, and we shall call it the line of C, for the C major scale, the easiest major scale because it has no incidentals. As you know by now, major scales are defined by the fact that they must respect the following pattern for the intervals separating two of their consecutive notes: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The beauty of the circle of fifths resides in the simple observation of the fact that if you shift this pattern to the right by 7 half tones, 5 notes, the first 9 half tones, 6 notes, remain the same. Notice that from C, 7 half tones take you to G, surprise. Let's then draw the G line of fifths and see what happens because of the observation we just made. As all major scales do, the G major scale must respect the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern. You can see that because the blue pattern falls on itself on a new scale, the interval pattern is respected for the first 5 intervals, 6 notes. Therefore, we already know that the first 6 notes of the G major scale are G, A, B, C, D, E. Beyond that, you can see that on a reference scale, the C major scale, the last 2 intervals are whole half, respectively between A and B and C. On the new scale, the G major scale, shifted by 7 half tones relative to the C major scale, the last 2 intervals fall respectively between E and F and G. However, we know from, for instance, the piano keyboard that the intervals between these notes are in fact half whole. Therefore, to respect the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern, the F note is raised with a sharp, and that fixes the issue, shifting from half whole to whole half in one fell swoop. Now, we have a new major scale, the G major scale, with a sharp on its 7th note, F. Nothing prevents us from doing the same thing again. Looking at where the blue pattern falls, sure enough, it is on D, also a perfect fifth from G. Following the same process as before, yes, the incidentals must follow, here the F sharp. We can see that the D major scale must have a sharp on its 7th note, namely C. If we repeat this process again and again, we will go around the whole circle and get a good understanding of how the circle of fifths is built by being aware of what happens behind the scene. Because we soon run out of screen space, let's look at the rest of the process on paper. Let's recap. We started with the most simple major scale, the one that has no incidentals, the C major scale. We went 7 half tones up, a perfect fifth, which led us to G. We drew a new scale starting from G, and we found out that to respect the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern, we had to raise the 7th note, F, with a sharp. We then realized that we could do the same again, which led us 7 half tones further up to D. Likewise, we raised the 7th note of the D major scale, C, with a sharp. Then came the A major scale with yet another sharp on its 7th note, G, and the E major scale with a sharp on D, and the B major scale with a sharp on A. The next time around, though, 7 half tones bring us to F sharp, and there, for the F sharp major scale, we raise E with a sharp. By the time we go another 7 half tones up, we come to C sharp, where we raise B with a sharp. Notice that by now we have raised all notes with a sharp, which would make the next turn weird because we would end up doing double sharps. At this point, we use the fact that all notes except D, G, and A, the 3 notes that are surrounded by black notes on the keyboard, can have 2 names, the enharmonic names. For instance, C can be called B sharp, C sharp can be called D flat, and so on. Here are all of them. The C sharp major scale is the C major scale where all the notes are raised with a sharp. C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C sharp. Using the enharmonic names, we can change all the names to the following: D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, D flat. Therefore, the C sharp and D flat major scales are one and the same. Using the D flat major scale, we can continue the process we used before. 7 half tones from D flat, we find A flat, and the 7th note of the A flat major scale, G flat, is likewise raised with a sharp, which gives a natural G, considering the fact that a sharp cancels a flat. Then comes, 7 half tones further up, the E flat major scale, which 7th note, D flat, becomes D when raised with a sharp. The next scale is B flat, with its A flat raised to natural A. So comes the F major scale, and here the E flat is raised to E natural. Finally, we come full circle because we fall on C major again, where the last flat on B is raised to B natural with a sharp. Let's now rewind the circle of fifths and see that we have a much better understanding of what it can do for us. For starters, you now know the reason for the note sequence from the top: C, G, D, A, E, B, and so on. Then, you can see that the number of incidentals, sharps or flats, increases on the way down on each side from 0 at the top, sharps on the right, and flats on the left. You can also see that it is easy to know which incidentals we are talking about for each scale if you notice that the new sharp, for a scale on the right side, is the note that is 2 notes back on the circle. For instance, the new and only sharp for the G major scale is F, which you can find on the left side of C. Likewise, the D major scale, which already has a sharp on F, it inherited it from G major, gets a new on C, which is 2 notes back from D. Another example down the line is that the 5th sharp of the B major scale falls on A, 2 notes back from B on a circle. Hey, don't forget to tell them that this is obvious. If you go back from say G to F, that is 14 half tones back, which is a whole octave plus 2 half tones, which corresponds to the note before the last note of the scale. Huh. There are many other uses of the circle of fifths, and we are... Oh, you mean that we have forgotten the minor scales? Okay, let's unwind the circle again and look at it. We can take care of the minor scales the same way we did with the major ones. Instead of drawing a line of C for the C major scale, let's draw a line of A for the A minor scale, the only minor scale that has no incidentals. Minor scales must respect the following pattern: whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Let's see what happens when we go a perfect fifth up from A, that is to E, and look at what that scale looks like if it is to be a minor scale. We are now used to this. Here it is the second note, F, that must have a sharp for the minor scale pattern to be respected. We then go a perfect fifth up and okay, you know the drill. And after a few times, when all the notes have a sharp, we make an enharmonic exchange and we continue. We go through all the minor scales. That covers the minor scales. Let's rewind once again. Now we can place the minor scales on the inside of the circle. Notice that they are placed so that the numbers of incidentals they have match those of the major scales. For instance, A minor is placed by C major because none of them have incidentals. Likewise, G sharp minor has 5 sharps just as B major does. The scales that are placed near each other are called associated scales. By now, we are pretty much done with investigating the intimate linear anatomy of the circle of fifths. Now, I would like to suggest some places you can visit. If you want to see and hear all 24 major and minor scales, you can go to www.salsaosubstance.dk/scales. If you want to play with an on-screen keyboard, you can go to www.salsaosubstance.dk/piano. I thank the author of the YouTube video Build a Piano with JavaScript tutorial for the source code. And if you have noticed the few colorful graphics I have used here and there, you can find them and create your own by visiting the same site /Chrysoid. Links are in the description. Thanks!